The second method of calculating depreciation is units of production. It's a two-step process. Step 1 is to calculate depreciation per unit, and you do that by subtracting your residual value from your cost and divide it by useful life in units. So to calculate depreciation per unit, you take your cost minus residual value divided by useful life in units. Once you have the depreciation per unit, your second step is to multiply that by how many units you used for the period. Let's say that you are looking at a vehicle and you calculate depreciation per mile. You multiply that by number of miles driven during the period, and that will give you your depreciation expense for that year. In the second year, again, you use the same depreciation per unit that you calculated, but you multiply it by the activity for the second year, and so on and so forth over the life of the asset. Let's take a look at an example next. On 1/1/2012, Cavazos Inc. purchased a van at a cost of $42,000. The residual value is expected to be $6,000 after the van's useful life of 120,000 miles. The van is driven 24,000 miles in the first year and 30,000 in the second year. What is the depreciation expense for the first and second year using the units of production method? You remember that we need three things to calculate depreciation expense. The first thing is cost, which is 42,000. The next thing is residual value, which is 6,000, and the estimated useful life, which is 120,000 miles. Estimated useful life is given in miles for this particular problem, but it'll be given in whatever units whenever you're using the units of production method. Calculating depreciation is a two-step process for this method. Step 1 is to calculate depreciation per unit. In this case, depreciation per mile. That is calculated by taking your cost, which is 42,000, minus residual value, which is 6,000, divided by estimated useful life in units, which is 120,000. And that gives you 30 cents per mile. The second step is to calculate your depreciation expense for the year. In order to do that, you need to figure out how many miles this van is driven in the year that you are calculating depreciation. First, we're going to calculate depreciation for expense for the first year, and then we're going to calculate depreciation expense for the second year. In the first year, they told you that the van was driven 24,000 miles. In the second year, the van was driven 30,000 miles. So to calculate depreciation expense for the first year, all we do is we take the 24,000 miles that it's driven and multiply it by 30 cents per mile, which is $7,200. For the second year, it's driven 30,000 miles. Again, we multiply that by 30 cents and we come up with $9,000 as your depreciation expense for the second year. Every year, when you calculate your depreciation expense, you need to journalize and post it to your ledger. So for year 1, your journal entry is going to be, you're going to debit depreciation expense for $7,200. You're going to credit accumulated depreciation $7,200. For the second year, you're going to debit depreciation expense for $9,000, credit accumulated depreciation for $9,000. Again, remember, book value is what's going to be reported in your balance sheet. Book value is calculated by subtracting your accumulated depreciation from your cost. The depreciation expense will be shown on your income statement.